Hello, students. Now we are going to review the difference between personal writing and academic writing. And I will teach you two more new things that you need to know about academic writing. So please pay attention. Let's start first with reviewing the differences between personal writing and academic writing. So let's take a look at this. Personal means what? About yourself, not from sources. Remember that? So let's take a look at this paragraph. Communication is very important to me. I like to communicate with my family and friends often. And because I live far away from my family, staying in touch with them is important. I do that in several ways. And then the device I use the most is my cell phone. I use WhatsApp to communicate with my family in Brazil because I can see them as well as talk to them at the same time, etc. Is this a paper based on sources, or is this only from my head, my own personal experience? Exactly. This is an example of a personal paragraph or paper. All right. Now let's take a look at our second paragraph. So, how do people connect with social networking sites, and what are the characteristics of a typical user? According to Vargas and Blas, 2014, most of the world population connects with social networking sites by using a computer. However, smartphones are becoming more popular. Now, how do I know all this information? Does this information come from my head, or did this information come from sources? So how do I know most of the world population connects with social networking sites by using a computer? Because these two authors here in their article published in 2014 mentioned that. Then how do I know smartphones are becoming more popular? Now most people are constantly using also from the same source, right? And then I'm saying here the majority of people in the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America watch TV while using social networking sites. So all this information comes from a source. Nothing comes from my head. I didn't create or invent this information. I had to look it up. Then here, there's another one. For example, take a look at this. According to Smith and Anderson, 2018, in America, adults use Facebook and YouTube often. So how do I know adults use Facebook and YouTube often? How do I know? I don't know, but these people studied it and I read it in their study. So I am then talking about the information I have found from sources. So is this a personal paper or is this an academic paper? This is an academic paper. All right, so now let's learn two things about an academic paper. So one thing we need to remember is that academic texts have sources. So when you finish writing your paragraph, right after the paragraph, you have to write works cited. That means the works that were mentioned, that were cited inside your paper. And in this paragraph, two of them were cited. So I have to name them. So right here, I name one, and right here, I name another. So if you pay attention here, the first one was Vargas and Blas. I have to mention it over here. And I have to add the title as well as the publishing company and the year. But you don't have to worry about it. I can give it to you for your population paper, but you'll have to have your works cited right here. And the other one that I mentioned in the paper that I cited was this one, so I need to cite it over here too. So at the end of an academic paper, like at the population paper, you need to have the phrase works cited, and you need to add the works that were cited. In your paper, there was two sources. One source was the reading that you did, reading one on population, and the second source was the 7 billion video. So those have to be mentioned after you finish your paper, below your paper. The second thing we need to learn about academic papers is what we call quote. What is a quote? A quote is when you copy the exact words from a source. But what you have to do though is you have to use quotation marks. Do you see these here? They are called quotation marks. So when you copy from a source, you need to use quotation marks. That means you copied from the source, and you need in parentheses, you need to say, to name that source. Okay? In this case, this is the area that was copied. This is the sentence that was copied, and this is where that sentence comes from. Well, you can do the same thing without copying. You can use your own words, but you still need to say where that information came from. In this case, for example, it's the exact same paragraph. So let's take a look at this. Here it says, in fact, a household can save more than $10,100 by taking public transportation and living with only one car. Publictransportation.org. As you can see, this was copied from the source. But I can use my own words. I still have to mention where that information comes from. In fact, you can read it right here. In fact, according to publictransportation.org, a family can save over $10,100 if they own one car and use public transportation. If you look at the sentence on the top here, the exact same words, and you look at the sentence on the bottom, I'm saying the exact same information, but here I'm using my own words, and here I copied from the source, and that's why I used quotation marks. Alrighty, that's it for now.